always hit one or two for the most part of my career. I hit a little three, but one or two early on, and I think it would be fun, be a little different. I've been in that 2-hole for a few years now, but kind of get back to a little bit more speed and have that aspect of the beat.
That was Trey Turner telling the media that he might be looking forward to hitting in a new spot in the lineup. It could be number one in the lineup. Todd Zolecki covers the Phillies, MLB.com, the Phillies podcast. You can check that out as well with Todd Zolecki, Jim Salisbury, Ruben Amaro Jr. He joins me right now with a look at the Phillies at spring training in Clearwater, which is probably a lot nicer than it is here right now. Todd Zolecki, what's up, buddy? Welcome back, man.
Mike, what's going on, dude? How are you?
I'm doing good. So my cousin said he met you a little while back, and he said, Todd Zolecki said he used to do your show all the time. I said, you know what? He did used to do my show all the time. It's time to bring him back.
Yeah, I love it, man. Good to talk to you, man. I haven't talked to you forever.
I know. I'll be down in Clearwater here soon. I hope to bump into you. I know you guys put out your list of your. Is everything okay down there? Like everything opening back up?
Yeah, I tell you what. When you drive to Clearwater Beach, I certainly like in some residential neighborhoods, like near the beach, things are still pretty banged up. But for the average Phillies fan coming to Clearwater this spring, you're really not going to see a huge difference in how the area looks. The marina right now is under construction on Clearwater Beach, but that was already scheduled. But pretty much everything else is open. There's like maybe one or two businesses that are still boarded up, but all the big restaurants down here, all the Frenchies locations are open. The Palm Pavilion reopened, Clear Sky, all those places, they're back and running, and it does look great down here.
Good to hear that. We'll be down in Clearwater here shortly. Todd Zolecki's with the Phillies. So let's start with Trey Turner. Lead off, it sounds like he's cool with that. I guess the question would be, he's cool with it, but is everybody else?
I think so. Yeah, you know what? I here's the sense I get from this team. They think they're really good. They think they can win the World Series. They also know that their time is limited. Schwarber is a free agent after the season. JT Realmuto is a free agent after the season. Ranger Suarez is a free agent after the season. And so I think they understand that they're not going to have this group together forever because you can't keep everybody all the time. And so I think these guys are willing to make adjustments. Bryce Harper loves to hit third. That's where he wants to hit. But he said, if I have to hit second, I'll hit second. I've hit second in the past. Kyle Schwarber, I think he loves hitting leadoff. And I think if you could pick your spot in the lineup and you could guarantee where you win a World Series, where would you? I think he would say first. But I also think he wants to win a World Series, so if he has to hit fourth, he will hit fourth. And I think Trey Turner, they think that if he hits first, it might make him a little bit more selective at the plate. It might change his approach. Instead of trying to drive in runs, maybe his mindset might be more, I just got to get on base. Just see pitches, just get on base, steal a bag or two, score some runs. And so I think all of those guys on board, because those are the three guys you have to consider, right? Bryce, Kyle, and Trey Turner. And all three of those guys seem to be very open to hitting in those spots.
That's the key, because you're right. Turner's hit leadoff plenty in the past. In fact, I think he's hit leadoff more than any other spot in the order during his career, as has Schwarber. But the big one is Harper. I've got people, messaging me. Well, Harper will not agree to do it, but you're saying that doesn't seem to be the case. He's willing to hit two, but probably not like, hey, do you want to hit leadoff? He's not wanting to do that, but he's willing to hit two.
Yes, he did say, I've hit two, I've hit three, I've hit four. He said, the reason why I like hitting third is because I like to see a lot of pitches before my bats. I like to see what the pitcher's doing. So obviously you move up one spot in the order. You don't see as many pitches in that first at bat, but you also get about 18, 20 more plate appearances over the course of a 162-game season. So you also get to hit more if you hit second, of course, obviously, right? The one thing he says he doesn't want to do is, I don't want to hit leadoff. I don't consider myself a leadoff hitter. But Rob Thompson also said that before we talked to Bryce the other day, or last week in camp. Rob said, we are not going to hit Bryce leadoff. He is not going to be a leadoff hitter. And that's because I think they just think the best option is Trey Turner.
All right, Todd Zolecki is with us down in Clearwater. MLB.com covers the Phillies podcast. Make sure you guys are checking that out throughout the spring for all the updates there. So I guess that means Bohm would hit in the 3 spot and Nick Castellanos in the 5 spot. After that, Then what are we looking at here? Is that just still up in the air? Is that something they're going to figure out down in Clearwater?
I think best guess right now, if Bohm does hit third, and Rob has said he likes the idea of splitting up Bryce and Schwarber with the righty bat. So that's why I think it's going to be Bohm in the 3 spot. I think you're right. I think Castellanos hits 5th. Then after that, you kind of have to Rob really does like to alternate the lefty-righty situation. So I think Bryson Stott right now is the favorite to hit 6th. He hit 5th or 6th most of last season, even though he struggled. He's healthy now, so everybody seems to think he's going to have a big bounce back year. He had an elbow injury last year that really kind of changed his swing, got him into some bad habits, they said. So he would hit 6th. I think JT Realmuto would hit 7th. And then you have 2 lefties at the end of the lineup in Max Kepler and Brandon Marsh. So probably Max Kepler 8th. He's got a little bit more pop. And then Brandon Marsh 9th. You could have Johan Rojas hitting 9th sometimes. So maybe you would have so you have Rojas hit 9th, Kepler hit 8th. But I think that's how the lineup right now on paper is probably most likely going to set up.
Todd, are you surprised that Kepler, not only was he the guy they brought in, but that they basically said he's going to be the everyday player out there? I mean, is that a little bit of a surprise that that's what they're going to go into this season with?
Well, it was definitely a surprise for me because I guess assumed that when they tried to upgrade in left field that it would be a right-handed hitting corner outfielder because they got Austin Hayes last year at the trade deadline, and the whole idea there was we're so left-handed, we need somebody that can crush some left-handed pitching in the postseason. And so they went out and they got Austin Hayes, and obviously that did not work out, and then they let him go. They non-tendered him. They made him a free agent after the season ended. But because of all those things, I went in the offseason going, okay, who's it going to be? Teoscar Hernandez, maybe, Anthony Santander from the Orioles. Could it be maybe a more mid-level type of right-handed bat? No, they went out and they got Max Kepler. It's funny because the night that news broke, it was Mark Feinsand at MLB.com. We broke that story, and then we caught word that the Phillies had reached an agreement on a 1-year contract with an outfielder. So I immediately went to all the right-handed hitting corner outfielders. I said, all right, well, it's not Hernandez, it's not Santander, it's not, it can't be this guy because he's also looking for a multi-year deal. I'm going, I said, who could it possibly be?
Who's left?
Figured out. Yeah, who's left that could? Who's a competent right-handed bat that would sign a 1-year deal? And I'm like, it might be a left-hander. So then we figured it out. We figured it out with Max Kepler, but it was very surprising to me. And is it surprising that he's penciled in to be the everyday left fielder? Not totally. I think they want to give him that opportunity to prove himself. I think they need him to try to prove himself. They want him to prove himself. When he is healthy and he's good, he's been very good. The problem is that he has been injured a lot, and when he's injured, he hasn't been very good. But I think they really want to see if he can hit left-handed pitching. If he can't hit left-handed pitching, then you're looking at a situation where you might see a little bit more Weston Wilson in left field this season.
All right. If you were to say, hey, they lost to the Mets, was their starting pitching the reason? And I ask that because the big move they made was to add a starter. Now, I understand they needed a starter, but when you look at the starting rotation, was that what needed to be upgraded the most?
Probably not to that degree, in the sense that you could have probably found a cheaper, and I say cheaper, I mean, they traded a top 100 prospect in Sterling Cobb to the Marlins to get Jesus Luzardo. Maybe you could have found maybe a cheaper option to be the number 5 starter to kind of hold the fort down until Andrew Painter comes up, possibly June, July, or August. But I think the Phillies, with their payroll restrictions, I mean, they have the 3rd highest payroll in baseball, but they're over that 4th luxury tax, so they're paying 110% tax penalty for every dollar they spend at this point. I think they couldn't get maybe the relievers they wanted on a 1-year deal. They got Jordan Romano, hoping he's going to bounce back. We talked about Kepler. Obviously, he's trying to bounce back on a 1-year deal. And so I think in their mind, and I actually agree with this. I've heard Pat Gillick say this, Hall of Fame GM with the Phillies, and Ruben Amaro and Ed Wade, all sorts of people over the years, just try to get better. And so if you can't maybe get the left-handed outfielder that you wanted, or maybe you can't get another elite closer or late inning reliever that you wanted, man, why don't you just stockpile up on starting pitching? Just go hard on starting pitching, because if you get good starting pitching, you have a chance to win most nights, even if your offense is struggling. So I think that's the thought process there. And also, I think, quite frankly, Dave Dombrowski said this last week. He says, I take the blame for this. I think one of the big reasons why we struggled in the second half is because I did not address the rotation at the trade deadline. You know, Taijuan Walker. Remember last second half, Taijuan Walker was pitching. Ranger was not good in the second half last year. He was injured. He was banged up. You had Tyler Phillips in there struggling. You had Seth Johnson, a prospect, make a spot start. So they really struggled in the second half, in part because their number 4 and 5 starters were struggling. So I think in Dave Dombrowski's mind is, okay, we didn't get Teoscar Hernandez or make a big move or make a big splash offensively like the Mets or like the Dodgers, but man, we've loaded up on starting pitching, and that should give us a pretty good chance.
All right, in your mind, the bullpen failed them in the playoffs, but is their bullpen better now than over 162 last year?
Boy, that is great. I don't know if I could say that right now, because Jeff Hoffman was so good last season. I know, an all-star reliever. Carlos Estevez was pretty good for them down the stretch. You know, obviously, you're right. They did not pitch well in the postseason. That was a big reason why they got knocked out by the Mets. A lot is hinging on two people in my mind. Jordan Romano, all-star closer 2 years in a row with the Blue Jays, was hurt last year. By all accounts, he's throwing the ball well this spring. I think they're optimistic about him. I think, to me, the big piece of this puzzle is Orion Kerkering. They really, truly believe he's ready to take a step up and fill the Jeff Hoffman role and be a dirty inning, coming in with a runner on first and second and one out and get out of the jam type of guy. If Orion Kerkering is ready to take that next step and be that dirty inning, late inning reliever, then I think that they could be good. But I mean, you're definitely have to keep an eye on Romano and Kerkering. I think both of those guys are going to need to step up to kind of match or exceed the performance of last year's bullpen.
All right, we're talking with Todd Zolecki, and you can check out all his work over at MLB.com, Phillies.com. Check out the Phillies podcast. It's a great show with him, Jim Salisbury, Ruben Amaro Jr. And one of the things, I guess, you know, we're getting a chance to see some of these young guys, Painter, Miller, Crawford, I know we all think Painter will have some impact, but do either of the position guys have a shot at all to impact this team in 2025?
I think there's a chance. Now, it's funny because Dave Dombrowski has said in his first press conference following the loss to the Mets last fall, Justin Crawford was brought up, and he said, now here's a guy that could come fast. He could, unlikely, but he could potentially push for a promotion at some point this season. I think that's possible. It's probably unlikely, but it's possible. I mean, if he just has a great year, and there's a need, for sure, I think he could be considered. Aiden Miller we asked Dave the same thing, and he brought it up on other things. Like, Aiden Miller is really, really good baseball player. We think he's going to be a really, really good shortstop. And he says a guy like that can come fast to the big leagues. I've seen it before. The great ones come fast, and he thinks he's going to be a star one day. He thinks Aiden Miller is going to be a star. So I actually asked Dave, I said, do you think he could push for a spot later this season? He said, I would not I don't want to put that on him. I think it's unlikely. I don't think so, but I can't entirely rule it out either. I mean, if the guy has a gangbusters year and there's an injury or there's a trade to be made or something like that, possibly, but I would say unlikely for both of them. But Painter for sure is a guy that Dave has openly said July-ish. He's like, that could be June, that could be August, 6-man rotation possibly, but he absolutely 100% expects Andrew Painter to pitch for them at some point in 2025 and be good. He's not coming up as a, hopefully he can give us 4 good innings, and be somewhat competitive. They expect him to come up and pitch well.
Yeah, and say if that's the case, then that means somebody's bumped, right? Or either bumped or traded.
Well, I don't.
Or hurt.
Well, hurt. Certainly, injury could impact that. I don't necessarily think, though, that means that somebody gets traded or somebody gets bumped. They have talked about using a 6-man rotation because for a few reasons. Ranger Suarez, he was injured last year. They want to keep him healthy. They want to monitor his workload. They think he wore down in the second half of this season. Jesus Luzardo missed most of last season with an injury. So they have to be really mindful of how much he pitches. And, of course, Andrew Painters has to be somebody who, he hasn't pitched in 2 competitive years, so they really need to monitor his workload. So it's not like Andrew Painter's going to come up and he's going to be throwing 110 pitches, going 6, 7, 8 innings every time out. He might only go, 4, 5, 6 innings. And regardless, they might want to give him that extra rest. So I do think there's a scenario where to keep these guys fresh and effective for the postseason, they do go to a 6-man rotation.
All right, Todd Zolecki. Of course, the Phillies open up on Saturday. Now, getting ready for the start of spring training, long grinding stuff here with not a lot of stories, right? They don't have a lot of roster decisions to make here. It looks like they got a 5-man rotation. They got a pretty set roster. They have a pretty set group of guys. Is there any roster story or something that fans should be paying attention to?
Well, I think Rafael Marchand, Garrett Stubbs, who's going to be the backup catcher. I think right now you go into camp, Rafael Marchand has the edge because he is out of options. So if he doesn't make the team, you probably lose him to another organization. And Phillies don't have a lot of great catching depth. So I think right now the edge goes to Marchand over Stubbs, who's been the backup the last 3 years. This is intriguing only because of the contract involved, but Taijuan Walker, is he going to be the last man in the bullpen?
Yes.
He's got 2 years, $36 million left, I think it's $38 million left on his deal. Is he going to make the team? So that's something to watch. Again, more or less because he's, the Phillies, when they signed him, they thought he'd be in the rotation, and now he's like fighting to be the long man in the bullpen. And then that last spot is the last bench job. Is it going to be Weston Wilson? Is it going to be Cody Clemens? If they try Edmundo Sosa in center field as a right-handed bat, does maybe Johan Rojas start the season in the minor leagues, and does that maybe allow them to keep Weston Wilson and Cody Clemens on the bench? So there's some like final bullpen spot, final bench spot, intrigue. But yeah, definitely nothing sexy, that's for sure.
Absolutely, which means more time. I like the new Bavaros down there. I was a big fan of that spot last year. Hopefully, it didn't get hit in the hurricane down there. I know the Boxer reopened too, right?
The Boxer reopened. The Bavaros is open. I know that because I know some friends that have already been down there and been crushing some za.
I saw last year. I saw Ruben at the Salt House, which took over for the Boxer. That's a nice little new spot down there. I know a lot of people.
I have not been there. Okay.
Yeah, it was at where the Brown Boxer used to be. It's called the Salt House. Really good spot. They really it's more of like I don't want to say fancier, but it's a nicer establishment in terms of it's got like the white look to it, very beachy. So yeah, it's a good spot to check out. Looking forward to getting back down there here soon. And Todd Zolecki, MLB.com, the Philly Show podcast. Make sure you guys check that out. And he was kind enough to come back here on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Thank you, Todd. We'll have you on again soon, bud.
Absolutely. See you, Mike.